Hi everybody. Today we're gonna talk about the book How Language Are Learned, and we're gonna discuss the chapter one and chapter four with my classmate Landy and Antonio. We're gonna discuss the chapter one and the how language, the first language acquisition. In the chapter one, we can find this interesting topic, and the writer describe how the language is acquired in the first years of life, um, and it says that it's very the language is the ability that a human have and develop in the first years of the life of the human. Now my
In the first topic, I found that some research are found developmental sequences, such as the earliest vocalization are simply involuntary crying in the babies when that babies do when they are hungry or uncomfortable. And by the end of the few years, most babies understand quite a few repeat words in language or language spoke around them. And also, I found that research had found 14 grammatical morphemes, such as present progressive when the children attach ing in the end of the noun. Plurals when the children attach s at all the nouns. And irregular past form, possessive, copula articles, regular past, third person singular simple, and auxiliary be.
Yeah, the book describes when children start to go school, and here we can find the preschool topic. And in the preschool years, children have acquired the basic structures of the language or languages spoken to them in these early years, and they begin to acquire less frequent and more complex linguistic structures such as passives and relative clauses. Also, they acquire the aggressive or casual language that is needed to defend their toys in a playground. In this way, they explore and begin to understand how and why language varies.
Well, another interesting topic we can find in chapter one is about how the children make the negation of the sentence of the they are gonna talk about. The negation is very complex in English because in English we use a lot of word to make negation like no, don't, doesn't, didn't. It depends about the tense of the sentence we are talking about. It's the in the book describe aloud the stage. In the first stage, the writer says that the child start to say the word no. It's like the Spanish because in the Spanish we only use the word no, but in English it's more difficult because it depends about the person, about the tense, how the negation we are gonna do because they are a lot negation like doesn't, didn't, and haven't. The other topic is the question. The child in the first years of life, the first question they do is the what is the principal word in their question. But when they feel the need to have information about where is their mother or father, they acquire another word like is where and when to describe process of their life to locate person Another topic we can find in the chapter one is the school years when the children start to go to the primary school. In this stage, the children start to relate the word with symbol, and they understand that the word has meaning and form. Well, in the chapter one, we can find two important theory about how the children acquire the first language. The first language. The first theory we can find in the book How Language Are Learning is the behaviorism. This is very important. The behaviorism is a theory. It was influential in the years 1914, and it was the principal exponent about this theory was Skinner, the principal proponent of this theory. And in this theory, the central research about how children acquire the first language is the imitation and the practice, and the environment is so important for the development of the language. And the behaviors theory, we can find a lot of topic about we can find a lot of topic like analyzing children's speech. In this topic, we find through example about three children which the research analyzing how they speak, how they are learning the English in the first stage. In the first example, we have Lucy and her mother, and second example we have Peter and Louis, and these are great example because in this example we can find the imitation. For example, mother says to Lucy, "Shall we play with the dolls?" And Lucy answered, "Play with dolls." That is a good example how the children imitate the language of their parents. Another example we have is Peter and Lois. For example, Peter said in the conversation that is in the book, "Strong, fall." We know that fall is a verb, but it's not conjugated in the past tense. And then Lois give a good answer because she said, "Yes, the trunk fell down." She conjugate the verb in the past tense, and then Peter repeat the verb if give an answer conjugate the verb. Give an answer conjugate the verb like trunk. The dumb trunk fell down. In the first part of conversation, we can find that Peter have a mistake in the conjugation of the verb fall, and in the second part of the conversation we can note that he conjugate the verb fell down, and that is an example about how the children acquire the language about imitation and practice because they always repeat what the parent says about them. But there is one other example because not all the children acquire the language practicing and imitating their father, like Catherine and Louis, because in this conversation Louis Louis speak about a train, and Catherine don't repeat nothing about Louis said. He tried to express her own ideas about her own word. They don't practice, and she don't practice, and she don't imitate what Lois is saying.
The innate perspective theory is related to Chomsky's hypothesis that all human language are based on some innate universal principles. This theory talks about how children learn much much pattern grammar without instruction. Chomsky say that there is something innate which made children learn.
Okay.
According to Piaget, for Piaget, language can be used to represent knowledge that children acquire through physical interaction with the environment. And in other way, for Vygotsky, so was essential internalize speech, and speech emerge in social in social interaction.
Sí, okay.
In cross-cultural research, mentioned that in every society, children are in different situations in which they hear language that is meaningful for them to the environment. Thus, it is difficult to judge of the long-term effect that that this modification that some adults make address to children.
Another important topic we can find in the behaviorism theory is the pattern of language. You know, in the pattern of language is about how the child create new rules about the new words. For example, in the book we have an example of a conversation about Randall and his mother, when the mother said to Randall, "Shall we need to take you to the doctor?" And Randall answered, "Why? So he can dog my little bum." This is an example because Randall create because Randall create a new word like is dog. In this is a word formation process because he think that the doctor he formed the verb dog like words like swimmer, actor, acts.
In the chapter number 1 in the behavior theory for Skinner, all the children acquire the language by practice and imitation, and all the language in their environment help them to acquire the language. And in the second theory for Chomsky, the innate perspective, all the children acquire the language. All the children acquire the language like other biological attitudes.
Like to walk, no?
Like to walk,
Like the
eat.
like the eat. You know that the behaviors perspective and the information processing has a lot of similarity because in the behaviors perspective we know that the children acquire the first language for imitation and practice. In the information process is when the student are acquiring a second language, and in this theory we find that the student acquire the language for experience and practice. And another topic that is named use based learning has similarity to the first 3 years because in the first 3 years in the chapter 1 we read that the children acquire some sentence or phrases, but they don't know how that sentence or phrases are structured. This is the same situation for the usage based learning because the learning can structure a sentence or maybe they have a sentence has a subject verb, and complement, but they know only because they heard one sentence, or
The interaction hypothesis is so important and essential to acquire the L2, and the modified interaction is necessary for making language comprehensible. So the learners need to interact with native speakers.
So we know in the chapter number 1, the children acquire language with interaction with their parents, and in this case, the person acquire language with native speaker.
like my classmate said, when we are acquiring the first language acquisition, we have interaction with our parents, and when we are acquiring the L2, we have interaction with teachers or our classmate. But to have interaction with the native speaker is so important, because with they we can find mistake in our pronunciation, in grammar, and in our errors that we made when we are speaking the L2.
The noticing hypothesis. This suggests nothing is learned it hasn't been noticed. The second language learners couldn't acquire a language until they become aware of the input.
Another relation in the chapter 1 and chapter 4 is the brain and language. You know, when the children are when the children are acquiring the mother language, some areas of their brain are activated. The same areas are activated in the first language acquisition are activated when the adult people are learning a second language.
In second language application crash and monitor model, affective filter is a metaphorical variable that prevent learn to when they acquire a language, even when the appropriate input is available. That effect is referred to negative result that the student that a student have when the learning is poor. And in theory, by crashing in the classroom, the student can learn better if they don't acquire the language with direct instructions.
The difference between the sociocultural perspective and that other research is that sociocultural theories assume that the cognitive process begins as an external, socially mediated activity and eventually become or internalized.
It's so interesting that topic. One difference between the L1 and L2 is the environment. You know, because in the behavior theories, the environment is so important to the children acquire the first language, and in the L2 we don't find the environment like so important to acquire the L2. Okay. We conclude that the L1 L2 has the same process to be acquired, but these processes are developed in different contexts. So it's depend about the age, the environment, the the interaction, and the feedback. The L1 and L2 are equal in the develop of learning, but it has difference how the child acquire this language, how the language are acquired.